On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse Q&A, we discuss the many reasons why people stay in abusive relationships. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse Q&A, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we are going to discuss the many different reasons why people stay in abusive relationships. And this is really like an anti-shame episode when it comes down to it. And before we get to our episode, if you want to be a guest on our Survivor Story episodes, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. And when you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. There you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. So today we're going to be talking about why people stay in abusive relationships. And there are a myriad of different reasons why people stay in these relationships. But I just first want to kind of just center on one thing that is common for everyone, and that is routine. And we are creatures of habit and routine, and we have healthy routines, and we can have unhealthy routines, regular routines. And sometimes we want to break those routines, but, those routines are habits. And it's very difficult to break a routine once you are in it for a very long time. So when it comes to the abuse cycle, a cycle can become routine. And as this routine or cycle continues, it's harder to break it, and you'll feel more stuck than ever before. And when it comes to the abuse cycle and the trauma bond, what happens is you're getting this emotional attachment between yourself and the abuser. And you have this very complex situation because abusive behaviors are happening, control and power are happening, but then there are these feelings of love that you have for this person. You might admire this person. You might feel grateful for having this person in your life, because when it comes to a trauma bond, a lot of the time in these cycles, the abuse can happen, but eventually what happens is you might get this positive reinforcement, or a love bombing might occur, things along those lines to kind of ease you out of it into a calming period, only for these cycles to begin again. And it's this back and forth between abuse and then affection that reinforces a victim's attachment to the person and the dependence on the abuser. And it makes it very difficult over a long period of time to leave the abuser because of this type of cycle. So that's the abuse cycle, and once you are in it, you're in it, and it becomes routine, it becomes recognizable, normalized in a lot of ways, and it becomes very difficult to break, especially if it's being reinforced with sorries and affections or gifts. It's not to say that fear isn't part of the cycle that's being reinforced. In many cases, that can be going on as well. Well, you might be walking on eggshells and being subservient during this part. Fawning might be going on, where it just gives this time for a cycle to restart after the abuse happens. It's part of the power and control in being stuck in this cycle. And it is nothing to be ashamed about. This can happen to anyone, no matter who you are. This can happen to anybody. And I think that's the biggest thing about abuse that is a misconception for a lot of people. This can happen to anyone. And there is no shame if you have been abused, gone through abuse, and have been in an abusive relationship for a very long time. So another reason why people stay in these relationships, specifically women who stay in these relationships, is fear for their own life or their child's life. So within the relationships, what is going on, the tactics that are being used to control you and to dominate you, they're designed to keep you to stay and to have you in fear for your life and for your child's life. And they will outright say that if you leave them, that they will harm you. And they could harm the child, sometimes your friends or family as well. We hear this about pets too. But this is a huge fear, and rightfully so. And of course, this is going to be a huge reason why abuse victims will stay in a relationship. Other reasons when it comes to fear for your life or your something to do with your child's life is, if there's children in your home, they might threaten to take your kids away from you. They might threaten to seek full custody of your children in a divorce proceeding. And this fear of losing custody or harm to your children as well, it might compel you as a victim of abuse to stay in these relationships. And also when it comes to children, you might be thinking about the impact a divorce or leaving might have on them. You might think that it is better for the children if you stay in this relationship, and that a separation will not be good for their mental well-being in the long run. And also to do with the children as well. Someone who is abused might feel that at least they're around to make sure that the kids are being defended in some way. And then if a separation does happen and the children are with the other parent, the abusive parent, half the time, they might be afraid that they cannot protect themselves. And, the safety of those kids is what is going through your head. And it's another big reason of why people, specifically women, stay in abusive relationships. A third reason on our list of why people stay in relationships is lack of financial resources and economic dependence. Financial abuse could be going on, and you just feel stuck due to a lack of money or helpful resources. And this can contribute to not knowing where you'll be staying, no housing, no job. Is a big reason. Even if you have a job, living independently, and costs of all of this is a lot. Childcare becomes a big thing. Payments of all of these things. You might have been put into debt because of this person and not have the financial resources to go through a proper divorce and custody, and that brings in as well the fears of where this money will come from, and maybe your kids being taken away from you at the same time. So lack of financial resources becomes a huge barrier, and the biggest barrier to leaving abusive relationships. Another reason why people stay in abusive relationships is that you don't realize that you are being abused. And when you're going through emotional abuse and an emotional abuse only, they could be very hidden forms of abuse, and you'll be manipulated, and your partner will be doing a lot of stuff to maintain control over you. And you could be in a very constant state of confusion, of stress, and it's hard to decipher what is actually going on because of the manipulation. It's really difficult to recognize that abuse is going on. And we discuss the different abuser types on our show all the time, from Lundy Bancroft's book, Why Does He Do That? And specifically, what comes to mind is the water torturer from the book, and that abuser type, and how they are very even keel, and they know how to press your buttons, and you might end up reacting to things. So you actually might think that the abuser is you. They're trying to shift their abuse onto you. So you might not even see them as an abuser at all when it comes to that specific type. So it's a big trick, and it's nothing to be ashamed about, and a big reason someone might stay in an abusive relationship. And next up on our list of reasons why people could stay in abusive relationships is fear of being labeled as a failure, a quitter. You might feel ashamed or embarrassed, so perfectionism could be a big thing going on within this category. When it comes to failure or being a quitter, that will hark back onto a lot of childhood stuff possibly, and what that means to you, and you're internalizing that so you stay within the relationship. And then when it comes to shame and embarrassment, could come from perfectionism, but it could come from societal institutions of what a relationship is and what a perfect relationship looks like, and that you might think to yourself, this stuff would never happen to me. I would never be in a relationship with someone like that, and it causes you to feel shame, and it causes you to feel embarrassed if that does happen. And there is no shame or embarrassment about it. As mentioned before, we discussed cycles, trauma bonds, fear, routine, habit, the love you have for the abuser. These things are all jumbled up in this, and it makes sense why anyone would stay. So whoever tells you that they wouldn't, to me, it's just very ignorant thinking, and there is no shame in staying. There is nothing wrong with you. And it takes, as we hear and we understand what we know, it takes an average of 7 times for someone to leave an abusive relationship for good. And another reason why people stay in abusive relationships is low self-esteem. And a lot of times an abuser will target someone that has a lot of insecurities to make them reliant on them for validation. We hear that a lot in our Survivor Story episodes. So what happens there is once, your worth or your self-esteem has been put into someone else's hands, it becomes very easy for the abuser to make comments about your looks, your intelligence, your behavior, and it really starts to sow the seeds of doubt in you. You might start thinking that you might not be able to get a better relationship than this one, and that this is the love that you think you deserve. And this is a big thing when it comes to abusive relationships. An abuser doesn't want you to feel like you have options sometimes in the outside world, that they are the truth teller and that they have your best interest and no one else would want you. So there's this fear of going back into the world of dating, and it feels daunting. And when you have low self-worth and self-esteem, what's happening is the abuser is just trying to get you to settle on them. And they're just trying to convince you that you are not worthy of anything, that you're not good enough. And you could have come into a relationship with low self-worth to begin with, or you might be in the relationship with solid self-worth, and they've done it within the relationship to make you believe that through their manipulation tactics. And this is just another big reason why people stay in abusive relationships. And another reason on our list for reasons to stay in abusive relationships is cultural reasons or religious reasons. Some cultures and religions have very strict gender roles and don't allow divorces or separations. They can make it very difficult. The view of you have to stay together. This is what relationships are. Honor thy husband, things along those lines. This can keep women in abusive relationships for a very, very, very long time. And another reason why women might stay in abusive relationships is the threat of blackmail. So you want to leave a relationship, and you have given your partner over time a lot of information about you. You're in a very vulnerable place. You've shared lots of secrets, parts of yourselves that you wouldn't have shared with anyone else because this trust was built. And an abuser can really take advantage of a situation like that by weaponizing this information about you. And they might try to blackmail you as a threat if you try to leave them altogether. And this could be secrets, could be about your secrets about your sexual orientation, photos, videos, things along those lines. Anything that you don't want your partner to share with anyone, they will use against you when it comes to blackmail. So up next, we have citizenship status, and this is pretty self-explanatory. When it comes to someone who is an immigrant, your status is not legal, and you're trying to, gain status in whatever country that you are in. And this puts the power in the abuser's hands here in a very big way. And when it comes to someone who knows that you really want this citizenship, they can really kind of blackmail you a lot. They can, cause legal troubles for you that could make it more difficult to become a legal immigrant into the country. So, the threat of you being deported, they really have a lot of power and control that revolves around that to make you do what they want you to do, with that as the biggest threat. And another one on our list is that your health prevents you from having independence to leave. So if you have a health condition where you depend on your abuser to help take care of you, that puts you in a very trapped situation because you don't have a support system outside of them. You could have been isolated, and we'll get to that soon. But, you could have some sort of disability and not receive a lot of financial aid to live on your own. And that really puts power and control into the hands of an abuser. And you might feel that because of your health situation, that you're just resigned to being in this relationship and you don't see any other way out, whether it be financial reasons, independence of being able to do certain things for yourself when getting medications and things like that. And this can really put you into a terrible spot of thinking that this person is your only option. And they also could be manipulating you, saying like, I'm the only one that cares about you. I'm the only one that is doing these things for you. But it's really just a form of power and control. And yeah, they might be doing these things that are helping you live, but they're also abusing you at the same time. And this is a big reason why women stay in relationships if you have a health condition. So up next on our list is, investing so much in a relationship so that it's too difficult to walk away, and you could have uprooted your whole entire life for this person, including your job, gone away from your support system. And you might have the belief in your head that relationships take work. And to make it work, you're dealing with the stresses of everything. And you've really just created this life that you always wanted, this family unit. You put a lot of time and sweat and hard work into it. And it's a hard thing to objectively look at and say, I can't do this anymore. This isn't worth it anymore after putting in so much work. And there is no shame in staying because of this reason. You love this person and you love this family possibly. You love this life that you created. And it really does take a lot to say, I can't do this anymore. And to give that vision up, to give that hard work up. It's not fair that you have to do that. It really isn't fair because you did put in all of this work, and there is no shame in staying because of that reason. It's very understandable why you would want to. And, it's hurtful that it's not working out. And this is a big reason why people stay in abusive relationships. Up next on our list is the belief or the possibility that change might be happening. So you're kind of holding on to hope. We hear this all the time on our Survivor Story episodes. Cycles are going to happen. Apologies might happen. You're getting sometimes calm, before everything starts again, before the cycle starts again. And you might start believing that if you try harder this time, that maybe things will get better. You might be looking at the beginning of the relationship where everything was great possibly at one time and saying, how do I get back to that? How do we get back to this? And you're hoping that things might change. And again, this is a very common belief and is nothing to be ashamed about for staying in a relationship, hoping this is going to happen, because this is just, you went through a period most likely where things were really good and you have that feeling inside you. You're thinking, oh, I know that this person can be this way. So it's very understandable. So this is a very big reason why people might stay in an abusive relationship, and there is no shame in having this belief system at all. Up next is you blaming yourself for everything, and we've kind of touched upon this before, but when you are in a relationship and you start to be manipulated, you might start blaming yourself for everything that is going on, their bad behavior. They're just really good, these abusers, at manipulating situations to make you think that you are the problem. As I said in earlier episodes, an abuser likes to, right off the bat, figure out how to become the truth teller in the relationship, that what comes out of their mouth seems like the truth. And once they become that truth teller in the relationship, it becomes much easier to convince you to blame yourself for everything that is going on. Again, this is a big reason why women stay in abusive relationships. And up next, we have isolation. Isolation, you have limited access to support networks, and your friends and family may not know that abuse is going on. You don't have anyone's support in leaving. They've done a very good job early on here, the abuser, of separating you from everyone. And once you're separated from everyone, it becomes very difficult for you to have connections to anyone. It becomes that much more difficult for you to leave these relationships, because this is where you might feel that no one understands you. You might feel at this point shame, guilt. You're stuck in a hole here. You have no connections here to the outside world to start reinforcing the bad things that are happening, and that you are not responsible for these things, and you're only hearing this other person telling you what you are responsible for. And the more you are isolated, the more that can happen. And this is a huge reason why women stay in abusive relationships. Another reason why women stay in abusive relationships is that they feel like they can save their partner, and your partner might always be in a lot of trouble, or they might make it look like they can't live without you, and that your love can save them from their own demise, that you can help reform them. We hear a lot of episodes where someone is a fixer, and they can see the abuser as someone who has potential. They have a lot of issues going on, but they can be fixed. And once you're in a relationship with someone like this, they can play the victim, and the abuser can play that victim status, and they might even threaten suicide. I can't live without you, all these types of things. And, you feel guilt possibly if you leave eventually, because you feel like their life might completely fall apart. And so there's this big feeling of not just saving your partner and changing their habits and their behavior, but also you feel like their life could be in your hands as well. And this is a big reason why people might stay in abusive relationships. And there's no shame in this. You're trying to do something good. It's admirable. what you're doing, but at the same time, you are being abused to stay in this relationship, and there's power and control being used against you. And there's no shame in staying for this, because you're just trying to be a good person. And another reason why women might stay in abusive relationships is because you might feel that no one will actually believe you that abuse is going on. And you're trying to get out, and you're trying to possibly have people listen to you to understand what is happening, and you could be isolated completely from people. And the person that you are with might be the nicest person in the world to the outside world. They could be promoting their amazing self-image outside of the home. They could be tarnishing your image outside of the home. And, you know, it's scary for you to leave a relationship if you think that no one will believe you, because smear campaigns could be going on at school, with other people, at the workplace, and even to your family and friends. And, you know, leaving that and having your reputation tarnished is a scary thing. It's a scary thing to wrap your head around, and you don't want to feel that way, because you yourself aren't the abuser at all, but they could have framed you in many different ways, whether recording conversations and egging you on beforehand, you know, not getting the full picture of things, setting you off in public, because they are able to be very even-keeled sometimes and say the right thing, or really know how to push your buttons where no one else can see it. It's very invisible to everybody else, but you know what it means, and you might react to that. And they're painting this picture, and it's hard to leave and tell everyone, hey, I was abused. You know, number one. And then two, it's hard to leave and not even say that you're not abused, but have someone else say that you are the abusive one. And it can keep you in a relationship for a very long time. And another reason why women stay in abusive relationships is rationalization. And this can hark back onto not knowing that abuse is going on, and your abusive partner might be stressed from work. They might have an alcohol addiction. They could have problems going on in other aspects of their life. You know, one of their parents might be dying. They might have their own issues with their family. They might be unemployed at a certain point. There's a lot of these external factors where you start to rationalize their behavior based upon these other external factors that are going on with your abusive partner. But the truth of everything is really that they are still abusive, and you don't deserve that at all. Your partner is also not taking responsibility and blaming their actions on these things. So there's this, you know, not taking responsibility for who they are, their actions, their reactions to things. It's a very confusing thing. And these rationalizations become normalized. And once these are normalized, it's very difficult to discern the reality of what is going on. And it keeps you in abusive relationships for a very long time. And up next on our list is the fear of being alone or unable to find another partner, or the thought process that you might not be able to find another partner, the fear of starting over and rebuilding your life. That is a scary thought, and it's a scary place to be. And when you're in this relationship and you're like, look at what I have already. Do I really want to lose this? Do I really want to start over again? Your abuser might have gotten to your head that you don't deserve anything better than them. Finding someone will be very difficult. They really might put this stuff into your head. They might have manipulated you into thinking that you are not worth it, as mentioned earlier. So this is a really big one, and another reason why women stay in abusive relationships. And another reason why women stay in abusive relationships is attachment to shared dreams and future plans with the abuser. And we hear this a lot in our Survivor Story episodes, where you have this dangling carrot put in front of you, and they're always harking back to this dangling carrot. And it's hard to get your mind off of that future, those dreams. Once that is in there and you've gone through this period of being with them for a very long time, they're able to really dangle that carrot in front of you and bring it out when they need it. You know, they can use it in two ways. They can dangle it so you stay, and then when they want to abuse you, they can kind of rip it away to make you really feel terrible and to do what they want. So it's a real double-edged sword there as well, and it's a power and control move. The abuser can really use that to keep you in a relationship, and it is a big reason why women stay in abusive relationships. And another big reason why women stay in abusive relationships are cultural and societal norms that prioritize marriage over personal well-being, that your identity and feelings of self-worth are contingent upon getting and keeping a man. And, you know, that idea of things very reinforced by Disney type of stuff. And that thought process and those society norms that are naturally kind of ingrained in us growing up can keep you in an abusive relationship for a very long time. And then talking about cultural and societal norms, this brings us into the last thing on our list, which is institutional responses. And this can be from religious leaders who are trained to see the goal of saving marriage over everything else. Police officers who really don't provide support to survivors, and they may treat violence as a domestic dispute and not really a crime. When it comes to restraining orders, there's really very little to prevent someone who's been the abusive partner who's been released to returning to the scene of the crime. And things like lack of affordable and safe housing, a limited number of emergency shelter beds for survivors of domestic violence means that there could be no place to go. These institutional things, which are realities, and these things might be something that keeps a woman in an abusive relationship longer, such as the dissuasion by police for even filing charges. Police might try to downplay the abuse if the police are even called into a situation. The court system, we hear horror stories of the family court system and the regular court system all the time, that they are not listening to survivors of abuse. And it can be a really big reason why people stay in abusive relationships, why women stay in abusive relationships, because these institutional responses are not helping them. And they know that these things aren't helping them. They see it every day in the news. You see it every day in the news, on social media. And it becomes a really big reason why women will stay in abusive relationships for a very long time. So this has been our episode on the many reasons why people stay in abusive relationships. And I wanted to do this episode to help lessen shame for staying, because there should be no shame in staying. I know a lot of people out there are feeling that, and I validate that that is how you're feeling, and it's understandable why, but anyone can get into abusive relationships, and there's so many reasons why we stay. And I'm just giving a big hug to everyone out there who needs one right now. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to be a guest on our Survivor Story episodes, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says Guest Form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our Guest Form page. There you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our Guest Form and press the Submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. And if you need support, we have our very own support group at narcissistapocalypse.com. So when you get there, click on the support group button and it takes you to our very own safe social network. And inside, you will see that we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. We have forum boards for you to post on and to get the validation you need and to validate other survivors just like you. So if you need support, join our support group today. And if you need even more support, please do visit our friends at DomesticShelters.org. At DomesticShelters.org, they have articles and resources to help you make sense of what you are dealing with. They have every phone number, email address, and website address for shelters and agencies, no matter how big or small the town you are in. DomesticShelters.org has it there. It is a wonderful organization. And that is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a good night.